It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Welcome to The New Next, a podcast that addresses current events and how they will impact the future. All that to say is, can you imagine an AI type thing of they get your digital image, but they're like, Matt, we think you would look better as a buff, like thing. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Hey, cool. I get to be a buff guy. And they're like, and I'm not trying to do this to like offend people that are listening to this because I don't know where everybody sits. But, and I know like we've even talked about your world of when I showed that one picture of a person walking in this, the taco, with the mask, and you're like, that's actually common where I'm from. Where I'm from, it's not. But maybe they put your head on a transsexual, or someone that's transgender. I said transsexual, sorry, old school, but, transgender. So, they're like, hey, we're going to have you be a hermaphrodite. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm not a hermaphrodite. Well, too late. You already signed off your stuff. Because it serves the purpose of the movie. So it's not about you. Or they're like, hey, you're kind of androgynous. I can never say it. Keanu Reeves, you could go as a male or female type person.
Yeah.
Androgynous. There we go. So we're going to make you a female. But it's going to look very similar body wise until we do a nude scene with you. And you're like, well, that's not my body, like there's all this kinds of stuff that, they like the stuff that's cool, and you're like, oh, cool, I could finally be a buff guy. But specifically females, I could see them like, yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to make your waist even smaller into something that doesn't make sense. We're going to make your boobs bigger. We're going to make your butt a certain kind of thing. And there's part of us like, oh, cool, I finally get to look like the way I was told I'm supposed to look. And then the other side is like, all they want is a part of my face.
Yeah.
Or a part of my likeness. They don't even want me. And it's like, if you're going to do that, why not just do pure computer generated images to start with? Like, don't even use, I don't know that.
Well, I read some stuff
connected
about like OnlyFans, accounts that were fully AI.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, oh my God, like what's the deal with these people that pay for that stuff? It's, I think it maybe says more about society here in America than it does, the system necessarily. Because if people really cared, they'd probably do something more about it. But to kind of loop back where we started, I just think that these tools are here to stay. They're well funded and they need to be regulated. But if you're not utilizing them in your business, I think it's a huge mistake. And for the writers too, you should just get on board and start it. The rapid fire testing out of ideas and stuff just seems like a no-brainer for me. And if you're kind of a great writer, you understand what people want, and then you have, it seems like it would almost turn you into a magician, so to speak. So you do have an event where the pure amount of time that you have to spend on something is drastically reduced. And I think that, naturally, just like you already have now, is the people that make a lot of money. So like your Ryan Reynolds, Margot Robbie, to use that the Barbie movie we're talking about, there's already a concentration in how much the top end talent gets paid. So, in a curve sense, there's very few at the top that get all the money out of that. And then also that carry the royalties or whatever you call it burnouts for performance. So I don't know if it necessarily would change much, but on more of the jobs that aren't valued in the same level as the big talent, I think it would perhaps make their life a lot easier and normalize, there's a lot of writers, long form writers for magazines and stuff that I like the way that they write, but I think that they're idiots, and their opinions are totally wrong all the time, and they're pushing stuff that's not true. But I still enjoy reading it because I like how they use the words. And a lot of people that are actually accurate and really understand it, or understand the thought process behind it, or are almost polymaths in the sense that they are able to understand and grasp multiple different subjects very well and then implement it on that level. It makes, I think, the amount of production that they can put out to see what's good and implement that. So as a tool, as a synthesis with your talent, I think it's, a good thing. And I think it's also a positive thing in the fact that it might provide some clearing in the market where people that just aren't going to make it anyways, it kind of cuts them out sooner than later. Or it allows them to take control of their own production value for way cheaper and do indie sort of stuff without having to raise millions of dollars.
Well, and I love that way of thinking. What I think is going to be a more realistic thing of what happens is the people who are already crappy writers are going to find a way to expedite their crappiness. And I find that the ones who, I'm not going to say there's not going to be any quality writers that do not use the tools and become even that their writing even becomes more successful or more structured or whatever the thing is that AI can provide. And those will be the exceptions though, because, so this, I've been constantly working through classics this year or really highly rated book series and books. I made kind of more of a point this year specifically to read some of the ones that make these lists all the time, of the best books of the 21st century or the best books of all time. And, there's a couple books, if it's okay to talk about. I don't want to bog down our time with stuff if you're I don't find this as interesting.
No, talk about whatever you want. It's natural conversation. So
there's one series called City of Bones, or that's not the series, but that's the first book, and it's by Cassandra Clark or Claire or something like that. And if you love her stuff, good. You're wrong. It's horrible. It's absolute drivel. It's 600 pages, and I got 450, 500 pages in, and I'm I don't care anything about this. If they all die or if they're all happy at the end, I just don't care. And so I decided I'm not going to finish this book. I put it down as 2 stars, which to me, my ranking system's weird anyway. If you get 1 star, it means literally you should not have written the book. I give you 2 stars because you at least wrote a book and you did the work to write it. But I start going why is this such a popular book and stuff? So I'm starting to read. I'm spending more time reading why it was popular than actually reading the book. And she was a Harry Potter fanfic writer who got banned from all the fanfic sites because of major plagiarism. And I'm cool. And then when they were talking about her writing this book, everybody was all excited. And then when they found out that she was a plagiarist, and we're not talking about similar things or nods to things, we're talking, exact word for word. The only thing that changed was the name of the person that said it or the gender or whatever. Everything else was exactly the same.
Yeah.
And she would put out massive 500-page stories and stuff, fanfic, and was stealing other people's work. And then I'm like, oh, well, this is why I don't enjoy it, because she's probably just stealing stuff and putting it all together. But she has like 6 books on the series and has made millions of dollars for this really crappy literature. And it's not just like, oh, I think it's crappy, therefore it's crappy. Like, it's bad writing. Stephanie Meyer is a freaking William Shakespeare compared to this lady. Stephanie Meyer of Twilight, just in case.
Yeah,
And I've never read Stephanie Meyer either, and I don't plan to. Though I probably will, because I can't stand not having at least tried to read a book that everybody was influenced by. Which means I'm probably going to eventually read 50 Shades of Grey too, and I'm not looking forward to that because I've heard it's even makes City of Bones look to be Shakespeare. I don't know.
Well,
so
any book that's written about Seattle that the writer is from the UK and has never traveled to and got all the sites from Google, it's pretty. I mean, you got to give her credit. So,
I guess. I mean, I gave her 2 stars, so I gave her credit for writing a book.
Well, I was talking about her 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh. I haven't read that, so I don't know yet.
I haven't either.
Then the other book I read, and I haven't given up on this one yet, but the premise is cool. And I think the premise is why so many people have read the book and why so many people have watched the movie. But it's written by an adult for adults, even though it's written almost like child fiction. Or maybe it's written for children, but it's called Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And it's the story of a kid whose dad is the one who's in charge of Auschwitz, or gets assigned to being in charge of Auschwitz as a Nazi officer. And his room is facing one of the camps. And eventually, I'm assuming I'm only 40% in the book, and it hasn't actually addressed the boy in the striped pajamas yet. But based on what I've read so far, it sounds like what's going to happen is he's going to see a kid about his own age who's wearing the black and white uniforms that they made the Jews wear at Auschwitz. And again, I have not read any reviews on it. I've not seen the movie. I'm just basing it on how the writing is. And the writing's not great, but it's okay. Basically, we're going to see him realize, because his dad calls anybody that's in the camp, they're not people, they're animals, that he's going to realize, like, no, that's a boy just like me. What we're doing is wrong. And I can't do anything to stop it because it's going to be just historical enough that there's not going to be a change. And the premise is kind of cool, but then it's like, what's the purpose of writing this book? It's to draw on, it's to give us a perspective. This is a guy from Scotland wrote this, by the way. This isn't someone like from Germany or US or something that wants to tell like a side of the story. No, it's like, we want to just see a perspective of what it would be like if you were a kid of the guy who runs Auschwitz. And it's like, no, that's messed up. Like, Aryans have better excuses than this. Like, it's horrible because, and I'm joking, like, Aryans don't have any good excuse. It's twisted, like, because this kid isn't going to turn into Mr. Schindler. You know, I'm slowly working myself way through it. It bothers me. And then I read like quality stuff, and I don't even mean like it's stuff that everybody's going to read, but I'm reading all these local artists right now, and I'm like, this is fun. Like, I'm reading one I just bought actually Friday night from a local artist called Forever Elko by Kim Bastian.
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram.
And, I've got about 5 or 6 chapters in. It's a very short book, but it's it's written poetically. That's cool. A story of how she tried to kill herself, and then the ramifications of what it means to come out of that and try to choose life and stuff. And I even wrote her after I read the first 4 chapters and like, hey, this is really cool. This book forces me to slow down because it feels like every word you write has weight to it. And so I really want to grasp each word. I don't want to rush through it, which is sometimes my tendency.
Yeah.
Our mutual friend Holly Stewart wrote I Can See for Miles at the end of last year, and it's her a memoir of her basically going through a lot of religious and parental pressure to try to be a certain person, and how she's done these really cool things that sound like they're in freaking spy novel stuff almost. So, I mean, seriously, like, and I know these are true because I remember when some of these activities actually happened, and we're talking about them in real time. Those kinds of things. My friend John Lawfrey, who wrote the book, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the one where it's a Seinfeld Choose Your Own Adventure book. My former professor, Marty Michelson, writing about common clarity. Like, these are all books, out of all that, only one of those is fiction, but it's writing it's deeper. It's something that really touches the soul. And so, like, when we've talked about, like, Fyodor Dostoevsky, of just how brilliant of a writer is, because he's writing truth.
Yeah.
He's not just writing to get the thing. But I've also read some kind of stupid-esque. I mean, like, it's good writing. It's like, I don't really know where it's coming from, but like, it's called White Trash Warlock, and it's followed up by Trailer Park Trickster, where
that
this
sounds
Oklahoma,
like
I'm not
the
even,
greatest title ever.
It is.
It's so amazing.
And it's a story
Warlock.
about a guy from Oklahoma. It's this warlock who lives in Guthrie, Oklahoma. Like, I'm not joking.
Awesome.
And I didn't know it was Oklahoma until I started. I was like, oh, this is a free book on Audible. I'm going to go ahead and listen to it. And I'm like, I gave it 3 stars, which is probably about 3.5 stars, because you can only do 3 or 4 for Audible. But I'm like, this is a solid book. And the second book is solid. I might wait a while before I buy the third book. I've read like Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which I love to death. One, it's a lit RPG, but it's also, it's pure satire on how we watch things as people. And
like voyeurism, like we're all voyeurs.
Yeah, voyeurism, but also just like how we cheer entertainment, what gets our numbers up and stuff. And ultimately, like, I finished book 6 and it just came out, so I'm really sad because it's going to be a few months for book 7 to come out. But basically, like, the first book, his girlfriend had just broken up with him, and he still got her cat. And then all of a sudden, these fissures all throughout Earth happen, and people fall into them, and he's one of them with the cat. And then when they wake up from this fissure, they're basically like in a video game. But it's real life, and all the rest of the universe is watching. Quintillions of people are watching, and I think you understand what quintillion is, but that's like,
a lot,
or not people, like, not humans, but just aliens and stuff. And, they have to kill, to get to the next level. And the goal is to get to high enough where you can live, you can live. And, as the series goes on, it's like, why are we still doing this? Because if we just let ourselves die, we wouldn't have to go through this pain and suffering. But hey, if you did something to your friend, all of a sudden you get a lot more people will sponsor you and give you more packages and stuff. Like, so oh goodness, it's kind of like, it's got that feel of the Running Man movie, not the book. No, even the book though. It's got some essences of some of the Running Man from like Roller Derby, not Roller Derby. Oh goodness, the Dome, Thunderdome. Yeah, Thunderdome. It's got some of these kinds of things, but the cat even becomes like a sentient being, and she's and she's like the leader because cats are more powerful or something at the first level. Like, and she's of course this posh cat, and she's like, Carl, I don't know what's going on in your life, but obviously you're stupid. That's why Beatrice didn't stay with you. And he's like, and he has a voice similar, or at least the audible version. He has kind of that Patrick Warburton, Bob's Burgers kind of voice, which I just love. I'm so super sexy. So I just love, and he's the one that narrates the main thing. But, there's all these books that are actually fun. They're enjoyable.
And there's some philosophical depth to them.
Yeah. I mean, right now I'm reading the Rise and Fall of the Extreme Championship Wrestling, and the quality of it is so much better than the crappy City of Bones. And even though it's just basically historical writing, and I know I'm more open to that, it's much more intriguing than Boy in Striped Pajamas for me. That's a value choice, but and I love wrestling, but so I'm not going to be like.
I think that's so weird too, because all that, like, what do they call it? Historical fiction, where it's like a totally different story, right?
If you would like to learn more about the New Next podcast, find us at thenewNextPodcast.com, where you can suggest a topic you would like for us to cover. If you enjoyed what you heard, share the podcast, tell a friend about it, or rate us with 5 stars.